Over the past 2 years, we've had a gradual, almost geometric shift in the attitude of gamers, shifting more towards single-player games, something that is incredibly evident especially this year, where month after month the top charting releases were mostly ones that told a story, be it a hardcore medieval experience like Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, the return of the Monster Hunter series, the store-breaking release of Team Cherry's Silk Song, and the critically acclaimed Expedition 34. The year had a lineup of games that focused on single-player experience, and all of them were incredibly welcomed. It may look like a no-brainer now, but there was a time, not too long ago, where it seemed like no one was interested in single-player games anymore. The one responsible for its death could be divided into several factors. The biggest role, the man holding the sword, being none other than live service games. In the 2010s, there was a noticed shift in the industry standard, the rise of live service games, solidified by Overwatch winning Game of the Year in 2016, beating Uncharted 4 and Titanfall 2. The message was clear right there to both gamers and companies. Live service games were here to stay, and the industry instantly fell in love with them. But who wouldn't want to? That endless cash stream without needing to build a new game from scratch screamed hello to the developers, all whilst keeping the player base numbers up and fans happy. It was a really foolproof idea at the time, making each blade sharper and reach deeper. But like all great empires, the fall wasn't just tied alone to the opposing forces, but internal cracks that have formed over the years of bad practices, which leads me to bloating. A term that had become all too rampant by the end of the 2010s. It felt like every single game was a big open world filled with side quests that were just there to increase playtime. That way they could justify slapping a shiny 100 hours gameplay level onto a 20-hour one and charge full price for it. It was manipulative at best, and people didn't really like that. And now that the shinier, cheaper kid was around the block, corporations were so done with single-player games. Now, I hope you guys understand that I'm exaggerating, more of a hyperbole, when I say that the single-player games were dead. It's not like we did not see any single-player game take the spotlight during this time, but it wasn't really a focus of the industry anymore. Okay, back to the story. But like a phoenix rising from the ashes, single-player games weren't done, just a little bit quiet for a while, and their comeback came slowly but surely. In nature, in order to survive a new climate, an organism has to adapt, remove traits that held them back, and focus on ones that push them forward. And while in the cold embrace of death, single-player games did just that, changing in two big ways. They had stronger narratives and meaningful choices. Games like Alan Wake 2 and Disco Elysium encompass this logic. Games that favored a linear, rich narrative rather than the pattern we've become all too used to. They didn't waste your time as every moment served a story. You could spend just a couple of hours into the game and feel very satisfied because the game has by then told its story to a degree, taking players back to a more simpler time in gaming. On the other hand, Baldur's Gate 3 showed up out of nowhere, breaking norms and winning accolades, but where it truly shined was in its ability to respect your choices structurally, an act that had become almost extinct, allowing you to make a plethora of different, important, narrative-bending choices that really affected the world around you. RPGs were back, with Baldur's Gate winning the Game Awards along 6 other single-player titles, even beating Tears of the Kingdom. Sure, these changes were an important aspect that revived single-player games, but that would have been all for naught if not for the strong factor that people don't often talk about, which leads us to the casual gaming mindset. I can't really pinpoint the exact time this happened, but there was a small and really expansive growing need for one-on-one casual play amongst gamers. You know, when you come back from work with a few hours to play, and instead of normally hopping into that Call of Duty and yelling your brains out, you spend that time playing an RPG that you can leave anytime without being judged. This is the reality of a lot of gamers after the lockdown. And as games became louder and more demanding of attention and grinding, people kind of realized that they weren't having fun, and it was almost borderline an addiction at this point. I remember seeing a lot of videos on YouTube talk about this burnout, and as someone who has experienced it from time to time, immersing yourself in a single player experience really does help get rid of that boredom. And that's why, even from the brink of supposed industrial death, single-player games came back stronger. They decided to focus not on attention metrics like their multiplayer counterparts, but rather on what made people play this genre of games to begin with, to experience a story, a world with a clear beginning and an end. And with 2026 being slated to be yet another dominated year by single-player games, I for one cannot wait to see what experiences they will bring alongside them. And with that, we can say comfortably that single-player games are back. And that's what I want to talk about today. What do you think? Are single-player games back, or is it just a phase in the gaming cycle? Let me know in the comment section, and as usual, don't forget to like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. I'm out too.